I'm Dr. Ray Wynn-Grant, wildlife ecologist and co-host of Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Protecting the Wild. You're tuning in to According to Portia.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Today, I'm joined by a woman who is redefining what leadership in science looks like. Dr. Ray Wynn-Grant is a wildlife ecologist, author of the memoir Wildlife, and the first Black woman to co host a national broadcast nature series with Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Protecting the Wild. Welcome to the show, Dr. Grant.
Thank you for having me, Portia.
I love it. I love it. I'm so excited to be speaking with you from you're so important to the culture, to our history. You're at first. You're breaking barriers in STEM, which is very important for young girls out here. And you're inspiring the next generation of conservationists. Let me do
Yeah.
that again. And you're inspiring the next generation of conservationists. So thank you so much for showing us and the world what representation in science looks like and is in making sure that it's important and it's transformative.
Thank you. That's a lot of compliments, but I really love what I do and believe it's very purposeful. And at this point in my life, I'm aiming for impact, maximum positive social impact.
I love it. I love it. And you've built a career that bridges science, storytelling, cultural impact. And when you look at your journey from wildlife ecologist to national TV host, what moment made you realize that your work was bigger than research and you had to make it a platform for representation?
I think that moment happened pretty early on, actually, when I was still doing research. And that's because I started my research career working in East Africa. I was very fortunate. I went into grad school saying, I want to study lions. And within a couple months, I was in Tanzania studying African
Really?
lions. And it was wonderful. As a Black American woman, I was the only Black American doing that work that I knew of and in that space, but I was surrounded by Black African ecologists and
Mhm.
scientists. But a few years later, I was continuing in grad school and I started studying North American bears, Black bears. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, like am I not only the only Black person doing this work, but am I like the first one to ever do it? Like there's not a lot of women, not a lot of people of color, and certainly no Black folks.
Yeah.
So it was at that point I realized even to do this research, like I'm spending so much time telling my friends, my partners, my
Yeah.
family members, my, aunties and cousins and everybody
Yeah.
about what my life is like and what I'm doing and everyone's interested. And so I realized like Black folks are really into this. And so my
Yeah.
work has to be more than research. It also has
Mhm.
to be showcasing this work in case there's more folks who want to get involved with wildlife conservation. So as I was like deep in research for work, I was doing a lot of just communicating this because I realized like there's some barriers that Black folks have to getting into this work and we need to break them down.
Absolutely. Now let's take a step back just a bit. Growing up, how did you even see a line of sight into making this a career for yourself, let alone becoming one of the first Black national co-hosts, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, all of that? So take us back as a little girl. What were your dreams?
I'm one of those people who knew what I wanted to do for a living when I was like 5 or 6, and then
Wow.
I have done it. Um, and that's pretty rare. I realize that, and maybe I'm a little delusional, but when I was a little kid, I loved watching nature shows on TV.
Yeah.
I loved watching all of them. Name the
Yeah.
nature show, I loved it, including Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And so I would just sit
Oh,
there and I would see these hosts, these nature show hosts, and they were British or Australian or American white guys, middle age, and they would go all over the world and they'd have tigers and they'd be with koalas or gorillas or whales or whatever it was. And I was like, this is awesome. I
yeah.
loved the idea of adventure. I loved the idea of very purposefully working with wildlife, right, to like save
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
And I wanted to do that. So I was like going to kindergarten and saying like, teacher, I want to be a nature show host. And I went to high school saying that, and I went to my first day of freshman year of college saying, like, I want to be a nature show host. And I didn't realize for many years that there was actually a science behind it, right? Because I
Mm,
wasn't aware. I mean, I'm not the only one who didn't, who was unaware that wildlife ecology, wildlife conservation is like a scientific field, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
we think of science as like wearing a lab coat and like using pipettes for chemicals and, that kind of, with beakers and tubes. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that science could be outside in nature, working with animals. So I thought
Yeah,
the only people who do this are on TV.
yeah.
So that's why very early on I was like, well, great, that's that's what I
That's
want to
what
do.
I'm going to do is
And it
be
was
on
in
TV.
college that I had a professor that actually said, like, there is actually science going on there. Let's get you into environmental science and ecology.
That's such a wonderful story, and it speaks so much to, like you alluded to, delusion, right? So maybe I was delusional, but maybe that's the way to win, to be delusional about your dreams, your goals, and then you just manifest them, knowing what it is that you want to do from day one, okay, 5 or 6, and then following through, sticking with that dream. So thank you so much for showing us that delusion is the way.
And thank you for saying that, but I'm not the only one. Like if you ask any 5-year-old, like they are delusional, like
Yeah,
if you ask any
yeah,
5-year-old, what do you want to do? They'll be like, I want to go to the moon. I want to
yeah,
go to Mars. I want
yeah.
to do this big, huge, amazing, sometimes impossible thing. And
Hmm.
they're not worried about whether it's real or not, whether it can happen or
Right.
not. Like they have these big dreams. And I think teenagehood, young adulthood that really dampens those
It
dreams that we have. It
does.
happened to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
but it for all of us, we become more realistic. And
Yeah.
so I often say like, people will ask like, what would baby Ray think of you now? And I'm like, 5-year-old Ray, if she could see me now, she would be like, yeah,
Yeah, she knew.
like I'm not that impressed. That's what I said, but it's more like 30-year-old Ray,
Yeah.
who was like a single mom and like didn't have a lot of money and was misguided, had gotten a lot of rejection. Like she's the one I think who would be shocked that I made it here.
And extremely proud, like we all are. And, I am a firm believer that you do have to be delusional to chase your dreams because the percentage of you making it is so low that you have to hold on to something to make sure that you hold fast to that dream and then continue to march towards it. And so we see the manifestation of who you are, and it makes us so very proud.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we were talking about off screen was the weight of being the first, right? And so, of course, you are the first Black woman to co-host a national Broadway nature show, a milestone that's both historic and symbolic. But what does it feel like to you to carry that distinction while also making sure that you're opening the door wide enough that you won't be the last?
You know, it means a lot to me. It matters to me very, very, very much. And at the same time, I really want everyone to know that I didn't necessarily do this. I didn't necessarily give myself this opportunity. Like I made myself very qualified. But if I had the power to to put me on a nature show, like to host a nature show, I would have done that like 20 years ago. I like
Right.
if that
Yeah.
power was within me, I would have made it happen.
Hmm.
So as much as like I worked my butt off, I made sure I was qualified, I asked, I tried, I auditioned, I pitched, I did all the things. Like it took a Fortune 500 company to decide we're going to create this TV show and we're going to choose this person to co-host it. And so when it comes to firsts out there, like for so many Black folks, maybe they did it themselves. But for also a lot of Black folks, like there was a door that was shut and someone else opened it. Like we didn't necessarily open it. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes society literally prevents things from happening. It doesn't mean Black folks aren't interested or qualified or there for it. Sometimes there is this this uh it's important, like it's necessary for society to open that door.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say all that to say, like sometimes folks get discouraged. Like when I talk to young people and they're like, well, I want to do this too, but there isn't enough room. And I always want to say, like, that's not you. That is not on you. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that you're not ready. It means that society hasn't caught up to where they should be yet. Right?
Yeah.
All the companies, all
Right.
the TV networks, like Black folks should be all over
Mm-hmm.
natural history television, but we're not.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
Mm-hmm.
because of anything about us or about me. It's about
Mm-hmm.
where society is. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess like that's the thing that I want to say first. And then second is that like this matters a lot. I am working my butt off to make sure that people know that I am Black, that I'm proud of being Black, that I do not accept the fact that I accept that I'm the first, but I don't accept that I'm the only Black person in this position. Like now that this door has been kicked down and I'm here doing nature shows, I want like everyone else to have that chance too. And to your
Mm-hmm.
point, I want to make sure that this isn't a one-time thing and it
Yeah.
doesn't happen again. Like we need a pipeline and more opportunities here.
Dr. Ray, for whatever reason, that is making me so emotional. It's such sage advice. Thank you so much because a lot of people really need to hear that. Like, it's not because of you, it's because of where we are in our society. First, and then second, let me be the example to open that door, kick it wide open so y'all can come through. And we certainly appreciate you for that. We're so very proud that you are there. And you are showing us the way. And thank you to 5-year-old Ray, who was like, girl, let's go. Let's knock down these
Delusional.
doors.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, speaking of knocking down doors, breaking barriers, of course, this is a extremely male-dominated field, and women hold approximately 30% of STEM jobs in North America from my research. From your own experience navigating wildlife ecology, a field, of course, that's male-dominated, what are three practical strategies that women can use to break barriers without shrinking themselves to fit in the room?
I have a lot of kind of non-traditional philosophies around this, but I really think the first thing is mental health. I think that women, especially women in their 30s and 40s, often sacrifice wellness, self-care, and particularly their mental health
Hmm.
for pushing through a career, through trying
Mm.
to like gain leadership that we deserve to have,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that we're worthy of. But I do find that because women are trying to achieve within the patriarchy, and then like Black women within like, like a white dominated, white supremacist patriarchal system,
Yeah.
our mental health suffers just from what we see on the news. It can be unrelated to work, but like
Yeah.
every time there's police brutality to Black folks, every time there's like, the president does some racist thing, like every time there is stuff going on, we absorb it and we hold it. And if we're also fighting in our careers and we're fighting to be seen and to rise in power and influence, it's just a lot of difficulty all the time. And so
Yeah.
I definitely believe that when I opened up therapy into my life, just like regular weekly talk therapy into my life, my world changed and I was a much better professional because I
Yeah.
had this important outlet for all of the emotional stuff that I, as a Black woman, millennial, was carrying.
Yeah.
And so I think that for women to succeed in the workplace, one, mental health, two, realizing that we have time. Society often tells us like we have this biological clock that's ticking, this career clock that's ticking. Social media makes us think like, oh my God, if we're not famous today, it'll never happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like understanding that we have time. There's these statistics out there that say like the average woman millionaire like achieves that status at age 49.
Hmm.
Like the average woman has a major career pivot at 42. Like there's all
Hmm.
these things that happen in middle age that we sometimes think need to happen in our 20s or 30s
Hmm.
or early
Hmm.
40s. But it's really like late 40s, 50s. I think people's women's careers often solidify in their 60s. So
Mm,
just understanding that like we do have time.
hmm
And there are years when like the time is more intentional, like you just have this knowledge. So I want to say mental health, understand that you have time. You don't have to rush your life or your career.
mm,
And then three, I think sometimes like faking confidence. And this is very personal to me because I used to be in these situations. Let's say I was giving scientific presentations all the time, and I would just kind of look around and be like, God, everyone else is smarter than me. That's how I felt.
hmm
I remember, I think it was Rihanna, like years ago, said something about how she like fakes confidence. And she was saying that one of her practices is to just like think to herself, like, what would a confident person say in this situation? What would a confident person do? How would a confident person sit in this chair? And I heard her say that and I started thinking like, okay, if I'm at a meeting and I want to be seen as like a leader, a professional, the future of this company, how do I sit in this chair? And I stopped sitting, kind of like upright and proper and I started just like putting one arm back. And like I'm faking it because I'm
Yeah,
nervous and worried,
yeah,
but I realized that like, oh yeah, this looks like I'm like relaxed and pretty confident. And now I do that all the time. If you ever see me in a meeting, I'm gonna have one arm back, not in like a casual posture, but
right,
it's
right.
like this feedback loop in myself where I'm like, I know I look confident, and actually now I feel a little bit smarter, a little bit more
hmm
like I belong. And so
hmm
I have actually, like a lot of people say when I'm on stages and I'm speaking, they're like, oh my God, like, do you ever get nervous? And I'm like, I am so nervous, but I want to make sure that I look like what people think a confident person
Yeah,
looks like because then they believe that about me. And then I start to believe it about myself.
yeah, yeah. I think therefore I am. Now listen, so I'm gonna go off script just a little bit. You need to tell us what your educational tract is, so or what it was, because we need to follow those guidelines from 5 until, the graduation from college and 30s and single mom and all of that to where you are now. So you're gonna have to share that.
I thank you. I grew up real urban. So I grew up in San Francisco. That's also where you're from. I had
Yeah.
I have a wonderful set of parents. I'm very fortunate, educated parents,
hmm
really creative, interesting parents. But we grew up urban, like lower income. We didn't have a car, we didn't have a TV, we didn't have those kinds of things. I went to public school, kindergarten through high school, regular public schools. I did just fine. I always want people to know that like I was not an A student, I was not a B student, I was more of like a B and C student in
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
school. When I was applying to college, I was like, oh boy, we'll see what.
Please, fingers crossed. Right?
Um, And I went to Emory University in Atlanta.
hmm
I graduated high school in 2003. I went to Emory University. I majored in environmental science. I loved Emory. I loved Atlanta. It's a great place to be in the early 2000s. It was
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
Um, and after college, I took some time off and I got a job. That was the right choice for me. It was also kind of expected of me. And I
hmm
worked in Washington, D.C. at the World Wildlife Fund, which is a big
hmm
wildlife conservation nonprofit. I was a secretary. It wasn't a glamorous job. I like made people coffee and took notes in meetings and but I got to look around and be like, look at all these scientists. Like I want to be like them. What do they have that I don't have?
Yeah.
And they had gone to grad school. So I was like, guess I'll do that too.
Yeah.
It was during that time that I was applying to grad schools and I decided to just go for it. Instead of like looking at the schools that I thought I was qualified for, I decided to like reach for the stars for grad school and just apply to some of the top places. I got into a lot of those top places because of my passion, I believe.
Mm.
I think it really shone through. And I went to Yale University for my master's degree. And Yale has a school of the environment. They have a law school and a medical school and blah, blah. They also
Yeah.
have a school of the environment
hmm
where everyone there is studying environmental science and management. It was an amazing experience. I loved it so much. I went straight into a PhD, and that was at Columbia University. And I was in the Department of Ecology and Evolution. And I was there for a long time. PhDs take a while. And after that, after a PhD, you can do something called a postdoctoral fellowship. It sounds like a
Mhm.
degree, but it's not. It's a job, but it's
Mhm.
very academic.
Mhm.
And my postdoc was at the American Museum of Natural History. So, like,
Mhm.
big, awesome natural history museum that everyone goes to in New York is where I worked. And on and on and on from there. But school was Emory, Yale, and Columbia. And I always share with students that apply to the Ivy League schools, apply to the big fancy private schools. My entire Yale experience was free. I did not have money to afford the education, and I got a full ride because schools like that have a lot of money. They have a
Yeah.
lot of room for financial aid. You can apply, and if you get in, you can get that funded.
That's
And it was definitely life-changing.
absolutely excellent. Bravo. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that you're going to help that one little 5-year-old that's out there with her heart and said, if she did it, I can do it too.
Mhm.
Now let's talk about another mentor in terms of if she did it, I can do it too, because the power of representation on screen, like you broke so many barriers, you're continuing to climb. We're so very proud of you. And I know I keep saying that, but we really are. But when it comes to on-screen representation, of course, studies show that male STEM characters still dominate on TV, even though most young women say seeing female scientists on screen matters. As someone now representing science in living rooms across the country, how powerful is media in shaping who believes they belong in these fields?
I think media is extremely powerful. I think media I believe and I know that media teaches us what we're not taught like in a formal setting, right? Like
Yeah.
learn what you learn in school and almost everything else you get from your family, your community, and the media. And so, I know that McDonald's French fries are delicious because I see that on TV, and whether I've ever had a French fry or not, I just know it because it
Yeah.
is proven to me. The media has so much influence. And so if we see TV shows where one group of people is always depicted in a certain way and another group of people are always depicted in a certain way, we are going to believe that, whether it's
Mhm.
true or not. And so I believe the media needs to take more responsibility in terms of making sure that there is representation.
Yeah.
Race shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't. I hate that it does, but it does. It
Yeah.
does, and it has for a long time, and it will continue to matter. And because of that, the media, I wish that they took their responsibility more seriously to make sure that racial dynamics are more even across the media. And so I don't have control over the whole media, but I have control over how I show up in the media and how I can pull more people onto
Hmm.
screens.
Hmm.
Um, you know, being a expert in wildlife stuff can look a lot of different ways. It can look like how I do it, which is like deep in the wilderness, getting my hands on animals, but it can also look like being, a coding on the computer or
Yeah.
being an artist or an educator, or a writer, or a
Hmm.
journalist. Like there's so many different ways that people participate in wildlife ecology and conservation. And I wish the media could shed more of a light on that so that everyone believes that they belong in whatever kind of field they're interested in.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to be respectful of your time, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the question about burnout, balancing your
Mhm.
career identity and motherhood, because you're a scientist, right? But for so many women who are watching, the question isn't how do you succeed? It's much more how do you sustain a meaningful career, a meaningful life as a mother, as a career woman, as someone who people count on, without burning out. What would you say to that?
I get this question a lot because I believe there's a perception that I have that figured out. And I don't. I really
Yeah.
don't. I do, I am a mom. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. I have two girls and they're wonderful. Um, but I do burn out sometimes.
Mm.
And when I do it, it's very messy. It is
Mm.
not like a cute little, oh, I need to take a lot of naps this weekend. It is like bad news,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
private, very private. It's never
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
seen, but it has
Hmm.
been experienced. And sometimes burnout looks like, my kids are unwell. I have not been present for some of their change. My 10-year-old is like going through puberty. She is becoming an adolescent. A lot is changing in her
Hmm.
social life. So sometimes burnout means like I realize my lack of presence has made a negative impact, and then I'm trying to overcompensate. Sometimes burnout is health, right? Like my physical health is in the trash can and it's not going
Mm.
to take, 4 days to get it back. It's going to take 4 months.
Mm.
Sometimes burnout is, you know, overwhelm from emails, from, work stuff, from tasks. I am still figuring that out, but some of the best advice I ever got was from a mentor of mine who talked about like instead of like a scale trying to balance in a woman's life, thinking of work and life as a pendulum. And
Hmm.
sometimes that pendulum is going to swing way more towards time at work. And sometimes it's going to swing way more towards like family and personal life.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's going to swing slowly, and sometimes it's going to swing really fast, back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes it will actually be like quite balanced in the middle. It'll
Yeah.
pass through the middle sometimes on its way to one or the other. And she encouraged me to think about that pendulum swing.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's helped me a little bit when, like right now, I'm on week 3 of 4 straight weeks of travel, for
Hmm.
work, and I'm realizing like, oh, my pendulum's all the way on the on the work side, 100%. But then, I had the month of January off, and I was at home,
Yeah.
and my pendulum was 100% like creating my home life and sinking in with my family.
Yeah.
So that's what I've got, but I still need the advice. I am still figuring it out, and I unfortunately still sometimes have like these mini crises where I feel like I'm making all of the wrong decisions, and I have to spend some time like with myself, finding stillness, just and forgiveness and
Hmm.
grace,
Hmm. Hmm.
to get through it.
I love it. Last question, because we have to ask you about inspiring the next generation, of course. So, if a young Black girl watching Wild Kingdom today suddenly sees herself in science because she sees you, what do you hope that she believes is possible for her future?
I really hope that she would believe that things can change. Me being the first and right now the only Black person hosting a nature show really means that in the last 3 years, something major changed on TV. And I hope that, like, of course, I hope that a little Black girl says, like, I want to do that and I can't. I want every little Black girl to be a wildlife ecologist. That's just
Hmm.
selfish of me. But a bigger picture, I want kids, I want Black youth, I want people of the world to know that change is possible. So that when you're a kid, don't work, don't worry about careers, don't concern yourself with job stuff. But do know that if something doesn't seem possible when you're a kid, society can change by the time you're an adult to be possible.
Yeah.
And you don't really want like the world to be the same from when you're 5 to when you're 25. You don't. You want it to open up. You want it to improve. You want it to broaden. And so I
Yeah.
hope that's what people see when they see me on TV. I hope they can understand like, hey, it wasn't all, isn't she, is this new? Is this something new? And like to see something new and something positive and something progressive, I want that
Hmm.
to inspire people so they know like, hey, maybe by the time that I'm an adult, there will be more opportunity for me to achieve my dreams.
Yeah. Dr. Ray Wynn-Grant, thank you so much for being proof that representation in science doesn't just change who's seen on screen, it changes who believes they belong to be in the field. Please tell us, where can we watch you? Where can we find you? Where can we follow you on social media? Where can we learn about all of the amazing things that you're doing, including this wildlife venture that you're about to head into?
I try to be in a lot of places. I'm very fortunate that you can find me every Saturday morning on NBC. You can catch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Protecting the Wild. You'll see my face with some amazing wild animals. You can also stream Wild Kingdom on Peacock. Um, you can find me on social media at Ray Wynn-Grant. I have a podcast on PBS Nature called Going Wild. I have a really awesome memoir out. It's called Wild Life, written by me, Ray Wynn-Grant. Um, and I love to do what I do. And so find me, DM me, invite me to talk. I am as many places as I can be.
We love that for you. We love you for who you are to the culture. Congratulations on everything that you are doing, especially proud to be celebrating you during Women's History Month. Thank you so much for the time. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. And
Thank
we'll be
you.
tuning in as well.
Thank you, Portia.
Thank you.